Hi, everybody. It's Darcy EIkenberg. I am the author of Bring Your Superpowers to Work, Your Guide to More Clarity, Confidence, and Control, and the founder of RedCapeRevolution.com. And I'm so excited today to bring you another terrific person that I've met in my journey who I think is bringing their superpowers to work, too. So I'd like to introduce Jonathan Fields.
Great to be here with you.
So thanks, Jonathan, for being here today. Jonathan is the author of the book Uncertainty, Turning Fear and Doubt into Fuel for Brilliance, which we all want more of. Also the author of Career Renegade several years ago, a book that I had read several times on my path coming forward. And Jonathan's a former lawyer. He's a New Yorker. He's an entrepreneur. He's started businesses, and he's done many different things. And we're going to hear some more about Jonathan and his path in a minute. So, again, Jonathan, thanks for being here today.
Sure.
Hey, Jonathan, just to start, if you tell us a little bit about how you got to the point where you are today, where you're a published author, where you're a very popular speaker, and I know that you are really focused on helping other people bring their creativity and their projects forward into the world. So tell us a little bit about your path.
Yeah, I have a very varied path, and I've certainly jumped careers a number of times, which when I started doing it was pretty uncommon, but these days, as we both know, it's actually fairly common. I was a lifelong entrepreneur. As a kid, I was a lemonade stand kid, and I kind of abandoned that for a period of years to go to law school. Was very fortunate in law school and did well and had some great opportunities. So I ended up in the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, investigating and prosecuting insider trading and market manipulation, which was, it was cool. It was interesting, really fascinating work. Went from there into a large firm in Manhattan, doing venture capital work, securities work, hedge fund work. And after about a year, I literally ended up in the hospital with a perforated intestine and a huge infection in the middle of my body after my immune system more or less shut down. Because I was just working insane hours, huge amount of stress. So it was a wake-up call for me. I took a step back. I took a legal pad and started writing something that had nothing to do with law. And that was my top 10 cool things to do with my life if I could figure out how to make a living at it list. And that was probably the first time I had a really big smile on my face in my office in a really long time.
Wow.
As I say about that list. And what I realized also was that many of those things for me were things where most people who did them didn't make much money. And I live in New York City. At that time I didn't, but I knew I was going to have a family support, and I like to live well in the world. I don't really like living in it now. So the quest became how to figure out how to build a better mousetrap. So I saved up a whole bunch of money because I knew I was going to be leaving. Made the jump from 6 figures to making $12 an hour as a personal trainer in training. Learned that industry from the point of service up, because that's always one of my philosophies. I want to know the fundamental touch points in any business, and understand the psychology behind it. Learned the industry, launched my own first company, which is a private training center. We grew that, expanded twice, sold it to an investor group. And then took a year off to really start to write a bit and explore the online world. And was also getting the Jones. I got married. I had a little baby, and I was getting the Jones to do something sort of bigger again. And I was really fascinated by the yoga world. So, with really, according to most people who knew me, no justification whatsoever, I opened a yoga studio in the middle of Manhattan with the goal of doing something which was differentiated, something that lowered barriers to participation for people who came out of a very mainstream, non-foofy approach to the world, and which funny enough wasn't really me, but it was the world I came from. I'm a little bit metaphysical, and signed that lease for a floor in a building in Manhattan in Hell's Kitchen with a 3-month-old baby and a home and a wife on September 10th, 2001, the day before 9/11. So it was an incredible time. The next 6 months to a year, the city was going through, incredible pain, incredible transformation. And I was going through a lot of struggle and transformation, trying to figure out what to do. Do I build a business? Do I not? But we pushed forward, and it turned out to be, there was never a bigger need in New York City for help, for healing and community. And we really embraced that and made the studio a source of healing and community. And we took off. We did really well. Over 7 years, I built that company. Expanded a number of times, built it into one of the larger teacher training institutes in the country as well. And then at the end of 2008, sold that as well, really to focus a lot more on helping people in business. And on the side, I had been consulting a small bit, helping other people grow small businesses. I have an affinity for marketing and sort of business strategy. And also writing. I really started to get that bug. So I sold the company at the end of 2008 and then focused most of my energies in the online world and on writing. And for the last 3 years or so, that's really where my focus has been growing a blog, understanding all the online business world, the online marketing world, writing books. You know, I mentioned the 2 books that I was fortunate to have out with some great publishers and teams. And so the focus now is actually I'm about to launch another venture, literally any second now. And I will continue to write books and to speak and to consult with organizations of all sizes. You know, as long as I can find the balance of what brings me a lot of joy, what allows me to live well in the world and honor my family and my love that I have for them, the time I want to be with them, and earn enough to live well and to give well, and sort of deal with that.
Well, you know, it's really interesting as you go through your story that, you know, you had so many diverse interests, and then there's something that you said that really struck me around, you know, building your financial foundation, you know, to allow you to do certain things, and then wanting to start from the ground up to learn certain types of businesses. Because so many people that, you know, I talk to, you know, interested in the idea of bringing your superpowers to work is great, and discovering them, they want to be doing that, and then so many stories in the media are, you know, this person abandoned everything and then they, you know, jumped from being a corporate CEO to a Vermont cheese farmer. But, you know, it sounds like you had a plan, and you really did make some commitments to yourself about the ways that you would get there.
Yeah. I mean, I had some bigger principles, I'm a thinker and I like to plan, but I'm also, you know, one of the core beliefs that's really grown much more core to me is that you should really plan as much as you can, but you should also understand that the vast majority of your assumptions are going to be wrong. Yeah. So you've got to keep yourself open to serendipity, to the possibility that you need to shift dramatically, and also to the possibility that there's opportunity out there that wasn't even like anywhere on your purview, that will come to you, and if you're so linearly focused on that original plan, you'll miss amazing things.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that staying open a possibility, but knowing that things can shift and change is a great transition into talking about uncertainty. So, you know, I really enjoyed your book, Uncertainty, and I'm curious, what was it that made you decide this was an area you wanted to dive in more? This was an area you wanted to research and publish on? Yeah,
you know, it's interesting, and looking back at the books I've written so far and what I have in my mind to write moving forward, I've actually started to realize that what's really been driving me is answering my own personal questions. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like with Career Renegade, it was more, how can you take something that the world says is just a stupid hobby and turn it into a living? Right. You know, is it just a pipe dream, or can you actually do it? So it was an exploration of like what you do. With Uncertainty, it was more about how do I do what I'm here to do on the planet, which is bring things to life that leave people changed without suffering so much myself. Mm. And, you know, are there people that are just, you know, is it a genetic thing? You know, are there people where you just touch down and you can handle the uncertainty that has to go along with creating something from nothing? And it does have to be there. Or is it something that's trainable? And if it's trainable, how? You know, what do you do? And that really became sort of like the deeper driving question for me, in part because I thought it would be really interesting exploration because, you know, everyone who I talked to, and what was interesting is that was a piece of the puzzle when I started writing this book, but it actually wasn't the focus of the book when I started writing. The focus was much more broadly what allows people to create on extraordinary high levels and build big things. And as I started interviewing all the different people, you know, this was one topic of conversation that I had a deep question around. And once we hit this topic, this area, with almost every interview that I was doing, from, you know, like solo artists to, you know, chief innovation officers at, you know, huge multi-billion-dollar companies, the conversation lit up. And everybody wanted to talk about it. Everybody wanted to know what I was discovering and what other people were telling me. And that was sort of a signpost that said, you know, this is a huge issue, and nobody's talking or writing about it in a substantive way. There are people writing about it in sort of a, you know, a very spiritual way. And I have that side to me, but I want to write something which was a really strong blend of, there's a spiritual take on this, but also from a hardcore science. Is there research? What happens to your brain? What does your brain look like on uncertainty? Is there science behind it? And what are the interventions that people are exploring, and where's the science? So sort of a story meets science approach to finding an answer to the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And as you know, I talk and teach a lot about confidence. And one of the things that, one of the textbook definitions of confidence is, the degree of which you are certain. And, so many times today, there's nothing that seems certain. I mean, bank is now a 4-letter word. It's just, there's so many questions that we have. So I'm curious, in your book, you offer several tips and ideas about how, people can manage through uncertainty, what they can take control of. What are some of the suggestions that you were most surprised at, or that you feel that, are maybe things that more people could have access to if they only realized it?
Yeah. Can I jump back for a second?
Uh-huh.
Because the definition you just shared of confidence, which is the degree to which you're certain,
mm-hmm.
It's funny to me. To me, that's the antithesis of confidence.
That's interesting. Uh-huh.
To me, confidence to me comes from your ability to handle sustained levels of uncertainty with a great degree of equanimity and ease.
I like that. Uh-huh.
Because the degree when you use that definition, the degree to which you are certain, you're setting yourself up for failure with everything.
Yeah, interesting.
Because anything worth doing, you won't have complete information for. You will always have to take action and make decisions in the face of less than perfect information. Which means that if confidence comes from high levels of certainty, and innovation and creativity comes from your ability to act when you don't have high levels of certainty and information, that there's a huge disconnect there for me.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a great point. When I think about confidence in the people we admire, I think about my own confidence in watching other people. There is a point as to where you do never have all the answers, and is it just the conviction that that you're not going to have those answers. But I like your definition. That's great. So
anyway, just wanted to go back.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I'm going to spin on that in my head a little bit too, because that's kind of interesting. I never knew that was one of sort of the textbook definitions.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I'm sorry, you're correct.
Yeah, no. So back
to interventions and ideas.
Yeah, right.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I looked at it from the standpoint of really, I broke it into a couple of different categories. One was workflow optimization. Like, what are the changes you can make in your workflow that would really help shift the psychology of creativity and innovation? What are the changes in work environment or in culture that you can make? And also, probably the thing you have most control over and the most profound in my mind also is what are the personal practices that you can embrace that will have a pretty profound effect on what you do. So, one of the, on the personal practice side, there are a whole bunch of things. But what's kind of funny is two of the things that we know intuitively to be naturally helpful in all parts of our lives that we run from. There's now tremendous research that shows that it's hugely important in the psychology of action, and that is mindfulness and movement. So really simple. We've looked at exercise, we've looked at mindfulness or meditation or any sort of calming practice, and said, well, it's great for stress management. It's great for, if you're kind of like a flaky spiritual person, go for it with the mindful meditation side of it. And exercise will keep you lean and looking good and feeling good and gives you athletic performance. But what's really fascinating is there's now a very strong and growing body of research on the effect of mindfulness and movement on mindset. And what we know now is that mindset is really the killer app in performance. It's not the knowledge, specific to your field. That's important. That's the foundation. But your ability to act on that knowledge is actually, and your ability to, the way that your mindset affects your outlook, are actually mission critical. The fundamental assumption used to be you get a great job, you build a great company, you find success professionally, and that makes you happy and fulfilled and joyful. We now know it's crystal clear that formula is absolutely backwards. That, you do the work to develop a really powerful mindset, an internal sensation of joy and fulfillment and meaning and happiness. And that's actually the fuel for success in professional endeavors. It's not the outcome. So it's kind of interesting. So the focus becomes, what do I do to control the mindset? So anyway, mindfulness and movement or meditation, attentional training, all of these things actually make real changes in your brain physiology that allow you to go to that place where you have to take action, where the fear center in your brain still lights up because you've got to move towards uncertainty, but it doesn't light up anywhere near the level that it would had you not been doing these practices. And you're able to tap a different part of your brain, part called the frontal cortex or the prefrontal cortex, which is sort of the part of your brain which is more rational and in control and self-regulatory, to pull back the amygdala's fear response and tamp it down and say, okay, relax, calm down, everything will be all right. So these should be like two basic practices. Developing I have a daily mindfulness practice. It's easy, it's non-dogmatic. I don't have to buy into any religious philosophy or ideology. I just sit on my cushion and I watch my breathing. And movement is absolutely, exercise is huge for changes in brain physiology that allow you a much greater sense of ease, not only in when you're trying to do something professionally, which will lead to the need to act in the face of uncertainty, but in waking up in a world which is now uncertain.
Yeah, I love the positioning of those two things that, we often maybe feel are should do's. Oh, well, we should exercise more, or I should take some quiet time. And especially in a lot of very busy corporate professionals, but to recognize that is an aspect, it is a way of taking control, it is a way of building your brain, that the research has shown that can really be so advantageous. So it becomes, less of a burden should and more of this is, how I can take care of myself and do great things for myself.
I mean, it's like people ask me, how do I absolutely get ahead? How do I raise my performance level to levels that I've never been able to do before, or that will blow people away, around me? And if I tell them that, they're kind of like, okay, yeah, but what should I really do?
Right.
And I'm like, no, listen. Yeah. And in the book, there's a ton of other stuff. There's a lot of other research and techniques and things like that. But fundamentally, the core. The two greatest force multipliers for peak performance, for creativity, innovation, and equanimity in work and in life are mindset and movement. Yeah. And people don't want to hear it because it's so fundamental. Right. But, all the other stuff you can build around it and it'll get you, more and more and more down the path. But these are the two biggest force multipliers in the planet.
Yeah. It comes down to some of the simple things in life, doesn't it? Really appreciating those, and
So, I mean, it circles. If you look at the ancient Greeks, that society, there was no such thing as a scholar who wasn't an athlete. People knew a long, long time ago that exercise actually had an effect on physiology and brain physiology and intelligence, and for some reason we've become so sedentary, we've moved away from this so much that. Now it's like, okay, we need to take a giant step back to take a giant step forward.
Yeah, interesting. Great. Well, Jonathan, you referred to this a little bit earlier, but you have some new projects in the works. Anything you can share?
I do. There's something. I came out with, I wrote something called my 2011 annual report, which was turned into a 34-page thing, which got vulnerable on a level actually that I wasn't anticipating going to. And it was one of those things where I was holding my finger on the publish button. Should I or shouldn't I? And I'm really glad that I released it. The response to it was absolutely mind blowing. It was downloaded and shared thousands and thousands of times, and the emails that it was an incredible experience. And at the end of that, I mentioned that one of my big focuses for 2011 is something called Good Life Project, which is essentially it's an endeavor to help educate, train, and mentor people who are looking to build amazing, world-shaping businesses in the world, and give them the knowledge, the support, and the skill set to really step up their game. So that's actually about to come to life very shortly, and that's where, in addition to all the other stuff I'm doing, that will take a big chunk of my time in 2012 and beyond.
Great. Well, it's terrific. Well, I think you're somebody who's bringing your superpowers to work to try to empower others to do the things that they need to be doing in the world. And I love the focus on some of the very, simple, basic ideas that have been proven over time, yet that we've lost. And I do think there's some great stuff in uncertainty, and think that it's a fantastic read and lots of great ideas. So, Jonathan, where can we find out more about you and your work?
Sure. I mean, my home base online is just jonathanfields.com. And from there, you can pretty much branch off and find everything else I'm working on.
Great. Terrific. And we'll have a link to that as well as a link to Uncertainty with this interview on redcaperevolution.com. So, again, we're here with Jonathan Fields, author of Uncertainty and creator of many terrific things in the world. And appreciate, Jonathan, your time today. I'm Darcy EIkenberg, author of Bring Your Superpowers to Work. And thanks, everybody, for watching. Bye, Jonathan.
Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.